So I'm not gonna lie, getting kind of tired of this series by now, but I promised part 4, so I'm gonna deliver it to the few people that probably care. Just a reminder that this is the top 100 bucket list movies, so these are not my top 25 favorite films of all time, just the top 25 among the 100 that were on this bucket list. So that being said, let's get into it. I'm just gonna go through these pretty quick because 25 is Seven, one of David Fincher's best. I enjoyed it a lot. The magic is really in the screenplay with this one. 24, Silence of the Lambs, cleaned up at the Oscars, is just as good as you were told. Anthony Hopkins is the standout. 23, The Shining. I only have one flaw with this movie, and that's that Jack Nicholson descends into madness a little faster than I probably would have liked. But rather than that, great movie. 22 is Vertigo, Hitchcock's best, way ahead of its time, and the use of color is really, really fantastic, as well as James Stewart's performance. 21 is In Bruges, one of the best dark comedies of all time. I really, really love it. I think it's hilarious, and I think Colin Farrell is amazing, as well as Brandon Gleeson, but the standout is definitely the direction by Martin McDonagh. At 20 we have Whiplash, which is one of the 3 or 4 films that I think are perfectly paced. I love the jazz music, and I love J.K. Simmons, as everyone does, in his performance. At 19, Big Lebowski. You probably know why I like it if you've seen it. Everyone loves it. I don't think I have to explain myself. At 18, Good Will Hunting. Might be a little biased, but this is one of those movies that really got me into filmmaking. The writing is definitely the standout here. Right. At 17, The Shawshank Redemption, just a really feel-good story, great performances, great writing, and the whole lot. At 16, Spirited Away. This is one of my favorite animated films of all time. I love Ghibli, and I love the world that they created here, and the soundtrack by Joe Hisaishi. At 15, The Clockwork Orange, a movie that I didn't love as much on the first watch, but on the second watch I decided that it's a masterpiece. At 14, Pulp Fiction, a movie sometimes called overrated, but I definitely stand on the other side of that fence. I think the film is fantastic, and even though it has lots of copycats, it doesn't take away from how great the original was. At 13 is Rosemarys Baby, one of the best horror films of any generation, and one that seems almost timeless and made me fall in love with the genre. At 12, Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive. Ryan Gosling seems almost too quiet in this movie, but that just adds to how fantastic his performance really is. At 11, Schindler's List, one of the best war films of all time. I love the cinematography and Ralph Fiennes particularly, and definitely one of Steven Spielberg's most mature and cinematic projects. Whatever. At 10, Fight Club, a movie that is really dear to me and that was fundamental in my cinematic journey. I love the characters and especially the story, basically everything about it. Apocalypse Now is probably one of the most chaotic war films that I've ever seen, but that only adds to how amazing the final product really is. At 8, we have The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the Clint Eastwood project helmed by Sergio Leone, one of the best westerns of all time. It's 3 hours long and it never loses your attention, way ahead of its time. At 7, we have Seven Samurai, not only because it's the perfect placing for a film with the word 7 in it, but also because it's just a great movie. Akira Kurosawa does an excellent job and is way ahead of his time, and despite this movie being black and white in Japanese and from the 50s, it still feels more enjoyable than half of the films coming out these days. At 6, we have Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a movie not only known for being one of the few serious performances Jim Carrey has ever delivered, but also for its insanely interesting and unique story written by Charlie Kaufman that just remains fascinating and really true all throughout. At number 5, we have No Country for Old Men, one of my favorite films of all time, which embraces the simple cat and mouse story that Cormac McCarthy wrote, while also diving into some deep and interesting themes in the backdrop. At 4, we have 12 Angry Men by Sidney Lumet, a film that concentrates more on the performance and the dialogue than anything else, and is able to embrace and enhance the cinematic experience by shutting us into this one room for the entire film, which is something that Lumet does amazingly. There's something very theatrical to it about his movies. At number 3, we have One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Milos Forman. Just a very interesting film. Danny DeVito is amazing, and Jack Nicholson as well. The heart is all there, and it covers a subject matter that you just don't see very often, dealing with things like lobotomy and mental illness in a very mature and intriguing way. At number 2, we have one of my favorite films of all time, and one that I debated putting at number 1 at some points while filming this list, and that's Taxi Driver. Everything about it is just amazing. The character of Travis Bickle is one of my favorites of all time, and the performance by Robert De Niro is probably my favorite of all time. Bernard Herrmann's score is jazzy infused with dark, smoky themes, and Paul Schrader's writing is absolutely fantastic. It's both dark and magical all at once. And at number 1, 2001: A Space Odyssey, one of my favorite films of all time, one that I've debated as my favorite film of all time, and one that I think really begs you to watch it again and again and again, be it with its ahead of the time practical effects, its fantastic soundtrack, or its eerie and irreverent final scene. So that's my list of the 100 bucket list movies ranked. Just thought I'd run through this last part really quick because I'm starting to get a little sick of this whole list, but I definitely enjoyed watching these movies, and I highly recommend anyone who sees this video do the same, because it is a lot of fun, and you can definitely discover some movies that will change your cinematic opinions forever. With that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.